My name is Kiara Han, and I used to believe that family tension always showed itself loudly. Arguments, raised voices, clear moments where you could point and say, that is the problem. I was wrong. The most dangerous kind of tension is the one that behaves politely. It was Christmas Eve when we arrived at Vivian Brooks' house, my mother-in-law. From the outside, it looked like something out of a holiday magazine. Warm golden lights wrapped around the roof. Soft music playing from hidden speakers. The smell of baked ham and cinnamon drifting through the open door. My husband Daniel parked the car slowly, as if he was trying to delay the moment without admitting it. "You're quiet," he said to me. "I'm just observing," I replied. In the back seat, my daughter Emma pressed her forehead against the window, watching the snow fall in slow motion. She was 9 years old, and she still believed Christmas meant something simple. Warmth, attention, belonging. "Do you think Grandma will like my drawing?" she asked. "It's perfect," I said automatically. Daniel smiled faintly. "She'll love it." I didn't answer that, because I had learned over the years that Vivian Brooks did not love things in the way most people did. She evaluated them, measured them, assigned meaning based on rules she never explained out loud. We stepped out of the car. The cold air hit instantly. Inside the house, everything was already in motion. Laughter, conversations, the controlled chaos of a large family pretending they were naturally close. Vivian stood near the living room entrance, dressed perfectly as always, like she had been waiting for a photograph rather than guests. "Daniel," she said warmly, hugging my husband first. Then she turned to me. A polite smile. "Kiara, you made it." Then her eyes moved to Emma. A half-second pause. "Emma," she said. Not unkind, not warm, just acknowledged. That difference mattered more than people like to admit. Emma didn't seem to notice. She ran inside immediately, joining the other children already circling the Christmas tree. I watched her go, and I noticed something I had noticed before but always explained away. The way the other children naturally grouped together. The way Emma sometimes had to step slightly aside to fit into their circle. The way no one called her first. I told myself I was being sensitive. I told myself it was normal in big families. Dinner passed in the usual rhythm. Too smooth. Too carefully arranged. Vivian controlled everything. Seating, conversation flow, even when laughter rose and fell. It was subtle, but I had started noticing the structure beneath the warmth. Emma stayed cheerful through it all. That was her habit. She always tried harder in rooms where she felt slightly unsure. After dinner, the moment everyone seemed to be waiting for arrived naturally. Vivian stood up and clapped her hands softly. "All right, everyone. Time for gifts." The children reacted instantly. The energy shifted. They rushed toward the tree, excitement breaking through the polite surface of the adults. Emma followed right behind them. For a moment, she blended in. For a moment, I almost believed everything was fine. Then I saw her stop. She crouched slightly near the tree, scanning the tags carefully. One by one, slowly, her head tilted, confused but trying not to show it. She stood up and walked back toward me. "Mom," she whispered. I leaned down. "I think I don't see mine." Her voice was calm. Too calm. Like she was reporting a small technical error. I looked at the tree again. At first, I told myself I must have missed it. But I didn't. There were neatly wrapped gifts everywhere. Each labeled. Each assigned. Every child had something. Every name I recognized had been accounted for. Except hers. I felt something tighten in my chest. Before I could respond, Vivian's voice rang out again. "Let's begin." One by one, she called names. Children stepped forward, laughing, opening gifts, returning with smiles. Each moment was clean, organized, expected. Emma stood beside me the entire time, waiting, not interrupting, not complaining, just waiting. I started to feel something worse than anger, uncertainty. Because if this was a mistake, someone would have corrected it by now. But no one did. The pile under the tree got smaller, then smaller again, until the last gift was taken. Vivian leaned back slightly in her chair, satisfied, as if a task had been completed successfully. That was when Emma stepped forward again. Polite, careful, Grandma, she said softly. Did mine get mixed up? The room didn't react immediately. It took a second. A pause too long to feel natural. Vivian looked at her. And for the first time that night, her expression wasn't warm or neutral. It was deliberate. No, she said. There wasn't one for you. The sentence didn't rise or fall. It simply existed, like a decision already finalized long before the question was asked. Emma didn't move. She just stood there, processing something she didn't yet have language for. And I realized, in a slow and uncomfortable way, that this was not a mistake. This was not forgetfulness. This was something else entirely. And before I could even fully understand what it was, my husband Daniel stood up. Daniel stood up slowly. Not suddenly. Not angrily. That was what made it worse. It didn't feel like a reaction. It felt like a decision that had been made long before this moment arrived. The room didn't immediately respond. People were still processing Vivian's words. There wasn't one for you. It hung in the air like something too heavy to ignore, but too strange to interrupt. Emma stayed frozen beside me. I could feel her trying to understand it in real time. Not emotionally. Logically. As if there was a missing rule she hadn't learned yet. I placed my hand gently on her back. A small grounding gesture. Daniel didn't look at Vivian first. He looked at Emma. Just for a second. That look carried something I didn't fully understand yet. Not surprise. Not confusion. Something closer to confirmation. Like he had been waiting for this exact moment. Then he turned away and walked toward the hallway. The sound of his footsteps across the wooden floor was unusually loud in the silence. One of Vivian's relatives let out a small nervous laugh. Is everything okay? No one answered. Vivian didn't move from her chair. She just watched Daniel disappear into the hallway with the calm expression of someone who believed they were still in control of the situation. I wasn't so sure. Emma looked up at me. Mom, is Dad angry? I didn't answer immediately, because I didn't know the correct answer. Daniel didn't behave like someone angry. He behaved like someone who had already prepared for something and was now simply executing it. A few seconds passed, then a few more. The atmosphere shifted slightly. Not dramatically, but enough that I noticed it in my body before I could explain it in my mind. Like the room had subtly changed pressure. Then Daniel returned. He was holding something in his hand. A plain white envelope. No decoration. No label visible from where I stood. But every instinct I had told me it mattered. He walked back into the room the same way he had left it. Calm. Measured. Controlled. He stopped near the center of the living room. Not close to Vivian. Not close to anyone. Just in the middle. Like he wanted everyone to see him equally. Vivian finally spoke. What is this, Daniel? He didn't answer her immediately. Instead, he looked around the room. At his cousins. At his aunts and uncles. At the children still holding half-open gifts. Then finally, he looked at Emma again. That same expression returned. And this time I understood something about it. It wasn't confirmation of what had happened. It was confirmation of what was about to happen. He knelt down slightly. So he was at Emma's level. Hey, he said softly. Emma didn't move. I need you to listen to me, okay? She nodded. Slowly. Daniel held up the envelope. This is for you. The room shifted again. Now people were paying attention. Not because they understood, but because they could feel the change in direction. Vivian's voice sharpened. What are you doing? Daniel didn't look at her. Not yet. He kept his focus on Emma. This is very important, he continued. Can you open it for me? Emma hesitated, then took the envelope with both hands. Her fingers were slightly shaking. I noticed that, and I realized I was holding my breath. She opened it carefully, slowly pulling out the contents. First, a folded paper, then another document behind it. Her eyes moved across the page. She didn't speak. Not at first. Then she looked up at Daniel, confused. What is this? Daniel smiled slightly. Not a happy smile. A steady one. And in a voice calm enough to silence the entire room, he said, That, Emma, means you're not alone anymore. Behind him, I saw Vivian finally shift in her chair. For the first time that night, her composure wasn't perfect anymore. For a moment, no one spoke. The entire room was focused on Emma's hands, on the paper she was holding, on the way her small fingers tightened slightly around the edges as she tried to understand what she was reading. I could feel the shift in the room, even if no one said anything yet. This was no longer about gifts. It wasn't even about Christmas anymore. Something had changed. Emma looked up at Daniel again. What does it mean? I'm not alone anymore. Her voice wasn't scared. It was searching. Like she was trying to find a rule that would explain the situation properly. Daniel stayed kneeling in front of her. He didn't rush his answer. That paper, he said carefully, is something official. Emma blinked. What kind of official? Before he could respond, Vivian's voice cut through the air. Sharp, controlled, but no longer calm. Daniel. Just his name. But it carried weight. He finally turned to her. Slowly. The first real eye contact between them since he returned to the room. Vivian stood up from her chair. Not fully emotional yet, but no longer relaxed. What exactly are you doing in my house? She asked. The question was simple, but it wasn't really a question. It was a warning. Daniel didn't move. I'm doing what should have been done a long time ago, he said. The room reacted immediately. Murmurs. Shifts in posture. People starting to realize they were no longer just watching a family moment. They were inside something else. Vivian took a step forward. This is Christmas, she said. Her tone tried to pull the room back into order. Not whatever you're turning it into. Daniel stood up slowly, still holding Emma's attention more than anyone else's. Exactly, he replied. Christmas. Then he turned slightly so the entire room could see him clearly. I think everyone here deserves to understand what has been happening for years. The words landed differently, because now they implied history. Not a single event, but repetition. Vivian's face tightened. You're being dramatic, she said quickly. Over a misunderstanding with a child's gift. Emma flinched slightly at the word misunderstanding. I noticed it immediately. Daniel noticed it too. He looked at Vivian now. Fully. No, he said. This isn't about a gift. The room went quieter again. Even the children had stopped moving. Daniel reached into the envelope Emma had opened and pulled out the second document. He held it up, not yet reading it, just letting it exist in the air. I found something, he said. A pause. Something small, but heavy. Something that changes how I understand this family. Vivian's voice dropped. Daniel'd stop. But he didn't. He finally looked at Emma again, softening slightly. I didn't tell you before because I wasn't sure how to explain it, he said to her. But you deserve the truth now. Emma nodded slowly, still confused, still trusting him. Daniel looked back at the room, at everyone watching, and then at Vivian. And for the first time, his voice wasn't just calm. It was final. This isn't about whether Emma got a gift, he said. It's about why she was never meant to be seen in this family at all. The words hit harder than anything before them, because now there was no pretending, no misunderstanding, no easy explanation left. Vivian's expression finally changed completely, not into anger, not into control, but into something closer to realization. Like she was beginning to understand that whatever was about to happen could not be stopped anymore. The room felt different now. Not louder, not more chaotic, just exposed. Like something carefully covered for years had finally been pulled open and no one knew how to close it again. Vivian stood in the center of the living room, no longer seated, no longer in control of her posture or her space. For the first time that night, she looked like someone who was being observed instead of someone doing the observing. Daniel held the document in his hand, but he still hadn't read it aloud. Not yet. He was waiting, not for permission, for acknowledgement. Emma stood close to me now. She wasn't crying, but she wasn't as calm as before either. Her confusion had started to shift into something heavier. Understanding was approaching, slowly, and she didn't fully know how to carry it yet. Dad, she said quietly, what is that paper for? Daniel knelt slightly again, so he could meet her eyes. It explains something important, he said gently. Something about how people are officially connected to each other. Emma frowned slightly. Like family? Yes, Daniel said. Then he paused and added carefully, like who is considered part of a family on paper. That sentence changed the atmosphere again. Because now it wasn't just emotional anymore. It was structural, legal, real in a different way. Vivian finally spoke again. Her voice was quieter now, but sharper underneath. "You're making this more complicated than it is," she said. Daniel didn't respond immediately. Instead, he looked at her for a long moment. And when he finally spoke, his voice was steady in a way that didn't invite argument. "No," he said. "You made it complicated a long time ago." The room reacted subtly. People shifting their weight. Glances exchanged. Something about the tone made it clear this wasn't a normal family disagreement anymore. Daniel unfolded the document. Slowly, carefully, he looked at the first line, then paused, as if confirming what he already knew. Then he read it out loud. Not dramatically, not emotionally, just clearly. "This is an official record," he said. "A change in legal guardianship." The room went still. Even the background noise seemed to disappear. Vivian's face tightened. "That's enough," she said quickly. But Daniel continued, not stopping, not reacting to her interruption. "It states that Emma is not just my stepdaughter." He looked down at Emma briefly, then back at the room. "She is legally my daughter." A pause. Then the second part. "And that this was not always acknowledged by everyone in this family." A murmur spread instantly. Small, uncontrolled, people turning to each other, trying to understand what they were hearing. Emma looked up at me, her voice barely above a whisper. "Mom, what does that mean?" I didn't answer right away, because the truth wasn't simple enough for a child's first hearing of it. Daniel answered instead. "It means," he said softly, "that I chose you officially, not just in this house, not just in my heart." He paused. "It means no one can take that away." Emma blinked slowly, processing, trying to connect emotion to structure. Then she said, "So, I'm really your daughter?" Daniel nodded immediately. Yes. No hesitation. No softness to avoid reality. Just truth. "Yes, you are." For a second, Emma didn't move. Then her shoulders dropped slightly, like something heavy had finally been set down inside her. But Vivian stepped forward again. Her voice had changed now. Not controlled, not measured, but defensive. "You don't understand what you're doing," she said. "This family has traditions, rules, boundaries." Daniel finally looked directly at her. And when he spoke, there was no softness left. "Then maybe those rules are the problem." Silence followed. The kind that doesn't feel empty. The kind that feels irreversible. Vivian stared at him, as if she was finally seeing something she didn't recognize. Not her son, not a guest, not someone she could manage, but someone who had already made a decision without her. And for the first time in her life, she had no response ready. The silence after Daniel's words didn't last long. It never does in rooms like this. Silence always breaks, either into denial or truth. Vivian chose denial first. "This is ridiculous," she said sharply. Her voice was louder now, but not stronger. "It's a misunderstanding of legal paperwork. You're twisting things in front of everyone." Daniel didn't move. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't match her energy. And that made him more powerful in that moment than she was. "I'm not twisting anything," he said calmly. "I'm explaining it." He turned slightly toward the room again, so everyone could hear clearly. "This document confirms something very simple." He paused, then continued, "That Emma is legally my daughter in every way that matters to the law." A few people nodded slowly. Others avoided eye contact, because now it wasn't just emotional discomfort. It was factual discomfort. Something written, something signed, something real. Emma looked between the adults again. Her voice was smaller now. "Does that mean I'm different now?" Daniel immediately shook his head. "No," he said. "You were always my daughter. This just makes it official." That answer seemed to settle something inside her, but not inside Vivian. She stepped forward again. Her composure was gone now. Not fully emotional, but visibly fractured. "You think this changes everything?" she said. Daniel looked at her. "It already has." A pause. Then Vivian said something unexpected. "You're doing this because of Christmas." The room shifted slightly again. Daniel frowned.
No.
Vivian gestured vaguely toward Emma. Because of this moment. Because of what she felt tonight. Daniel didn't deny it, but he corrected her. I'm doing it because I should have done it earlier. That sentence landed differently. He wasn't reacting. He was concluding. Vivian shook her head. You're undermining how this family works. Daniel responded immediately. Then maybe it shouldn't have worked like this in the first place. That was the first time the room reacted with audible discomfort. Someone shifted in their seat. Someone whispered something under their breath. Because now it was no longer about one child. It was about structure. About authority. About what kind of family this really was. Vivian looked around the room as if searching for support. But the room wasn't answering her anymore. It was watching, listening, waiting. Daniel stepped slightly closer to her. Not aggressively, just firmly. There's something else, he said. Vivian's expression tightened. No, she said immediately. But he continued anyway. I asked questions after I saw how Emma was being treated over time. The room went still again. Emma looked up at him, confused. Daniel glanced at her quickly, softening for just a second. You didn't do anything wrong, he said gently. Then back to Vivian. But I needed to understand why it kept happening. A pause. Then he said it, clearly, calmly, because it wasn't an accident. That sentence changed everything in the room, because it removed the last possible excuse. Vivian's face hardened instantly. You're accusing me of something? She snapped. Daniel didn't flinch. I'm stating what I observed. The tension peaked. People were no longer just uncomfortable. They were choosing sides silently. Vivian's voice dropped. You're destroying this family over one child's misunderstanding. That was the moment. The final attempt to reduce everything. Daniel looked at her for a long moment, then spoke quietly. Emma is not a misunderstanding. A pause. Then he added, she is your granddaughter. Silence again. But different this time. Heavier. Final. And for the first time since the night began, Vivian had nothing left to say that could bring the room back under her control. No one spoke for a long time, not because there was nothing left to say, but because everything important had already been said. The room felt emptied in a different way now. Not of people, but of certainty. Vivian stood in the middle of it all. And for the first time, she didn't look like someone managing a family. She looked like someone who had lost control of how she was seen. Emma stayed close to me. Her hand was still in mine, but she was no longer confused the way she had been earlier. Something had shifted inside her. Understanding had replaced uncertainty. Not fully, but enough. Daniel stood between us and Vivian. Not blocking, not attacking, just present. Final. Vivian finally broke the silence. Her voice was lower now. Not sharp, not commanding. Tired. You think this fixes anything? She asked. Daniel answered without hesitation. It fixes what was wrong. A pause. Vivian looked at Emma. For the first time, really looked at her. Not as a problem. Not as a category. But as a child standing in front of her. Something flickered in her expression. But it didn't last long enough to become emotion. She looked away. That child was never excluded, she said quietly. The words sounded weaker than she intended. Even she seemed to know it. Emma tightened her grip on my hand slightly. Daniel stepped forward a little. Yes, she was, he said simply. No anger. Just fact. The room shifted again. Because facts are harder to argue with when no one is shouting. Vivian opened her mouth. But nothing came out immediately. For the first time, she didn't have control over the narrative. And she knew it. A few seconds passed. Then Daniel spoke again. I didn't want this to happen here, he said. I didn't want it to happen like this. He looked at Emma, softening again. But I won't let it continue either. Emma looked up at him. Is everything okay now? She asked. The question wasn't about the room. It was about her world. Daniel nodded immediately. Yes, he said. Everything important is okay now. A pause. Then he added, because you are not alone anymore. That sentence didn't change the room. It changed her. Emma exhaled slowly, like she had been holding her breath for a very long time without realizing it. Vivian watched this. Silently. Something in her posture shifted slightly. Not redemption. Not apology. Just awareness that something irreversible had already happened. Daniel turned slightly toward the room one last time. "This is what I wanted everyone to understand," he said. "It was never about a gift." A pause. It was about recognition. Silence followed. No one argued. No one interrupted. Because there was nothing left to defend. Vivian slowly stepped back. Not leaving. Not speaking. Just retreating into herself in a way that looked unfamiliar even to her. Emma leaned closer to me. "Mom," she whispered. "Yes." She hesitated, then said softly, "I think I understand now." I squeezed her hand gently. "I know," I said. Daniel looked at us both. And for the first time since the night began, he smiled. Not because anything was perfect, but because something had finally been made clear. And outside the window, the snow kept falling quietly, as if the world itself had decided to move on.